Welcome to Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show. Hi, I'm Brian Fernandez, and today we're going to talk about the critical role of identity security in helping ASEAN become a more secure region. Now, to bring an expert lens to this, we have Eric Kong, Managing Director of ASEAN at SailPoint. Now, SailPoint was founded in 2005 and is headquartered in Austin, Texas. It's a leader in identity security, providing modern enterprises with the tools to seamlessly manage and secure access to applications and data. Now, to tell us more, Eric, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to chatting with you, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Now, for a start, could you just give us a little bit more about SailPoint and your role within the company?
Sure, Brian. SailPoint, as you alluded to, we've been in the identity security business for a long time, helping customers manage and secure their identities. We're a US-based company headquartered in Austin, Texas. I'm based out here in Singapore. I head up the Southeast Asia business.
Now, why is identity security critical in today's cybersecurity landscape, particularly in the context of ASEAN's evolving digital infrastructure? And it's critical. It's quite unique, right? We have countries like Singapore in ASEAN, which obviously have first world digital infrastructure. And then we also have less developed countries, the Cambodias and Laos of this world. Walk us through why identity security is critical.
Yeah, so Brian, maybe let me just start with kind of like contextualizing identity security, right? It means different things to different people, right? In layman terms, it's essentially understanding who in your organization has access to what resources, be it data, applications, right? And for what reason, and when should they have access? So that is important for organizations, because if I were to go back to research, right, and you know that data breaches is becoming a bigger and bigger problem, right, across the world, and also in ASEAN, 90% of data breaches are identity related. And that's validated by multiple reports, right? I mean, I reference the Identity Security Alliance, but you can go and you look, right? 9 out of 10 data breaches are all related to identity, a set of credentials, privileged credentials being compromised. So that's why it's so critical, right? That we manage and we secure identities. Particularly in ASEAN, Brian, we are seeing similar trends. Look, the threat actors, they don't distinguish between large, small enterprises, a mature country or less mature countries. For them, right, this business is big, right? And we see similar threats across the entire region. And particularly, I think in ASEAN, it is gaining renewed importance, primarily because post of COVID, we came out of COVID very strong, and that rapid digitalization that we are observing in ASEAN, not just in Singapore, right? I mean, you see it in Malaysia, you see it in Thailand, you see it in Vietnam. That acceleration of digital transformation, which means that there will be a lot more. There's an explosion of digital identities. Research tells us that the identities, these are not just human identities, they're also non-human identities as organizations start to use bots and start to use service accounts. It is not just employees in your organizations that you worry about, it's also non-employees. We see organizations across the world and across ASEAN leveraging third parties to help them scale. So the explosion of identities and identities are expected to grow some 6 to 10% over the next 3 years. And with that explosion, right, how do organizations manage and secure their identities, ensure that their organizations are safe? And that's why I think identity security is taking such a high prominence in the management committees, on the boards. And if you think back to just before COVID, right, where the focus was around ensuring that we build walls and we build fences and protect our crown jewels, which are our data assets. Post of COVID, with remote work, right, you are seeing employees working from anywhere, accessing critical data from anywhere on any device. right? So that's the other reason why I think identity security is so critical. And it's escalated by the fact that the threat actors are also becoming a lot more sophisticated. We are seeing cyber threats escalating and evolving, right, at speed and at scale and with increasing sophistications. So organizations need to think about how do they keep pace with that. You know, the bad guys are leveraging advanced tools, AI/ML, to attack at speed and scale. What are organizations doing? What are they investing in to be able to meet that challenge?
And now, okay, so there's a really a clear sign that organization and post-COVID, as you had a distributed workforce, as you pointed out, you just pointed out, they invested a lot in the infrastructure to enable that distributed workforce to function. You had an explosion of identities out there. So today now, 2024, and with the second half of the year, CISOs obviously, in terms of priority, security has gone up not just as a top priority for CISOs, it's now top priority for CXOs across the region. What are some of the critical investments that need to be made, especially among large organizations?
Thanks for that question, Brian. I mean, it is recognized. I talk to a lot of customers and a lot of executives. I think there is broad recognition that identity security now sits at the core of security. It is a critical pillar in zero trust. You know, making sure that you protect every single identity, you keep the organization safe. Identity security sits at the core and the foundation of that. And in terms of where we're seeing investments, right? Investments in advanced identity security toolsets. And at SailPoint, the way we think about it is this, right? We believe the future of identity security is in unification, unifying the entire identity landscape, right, on a single platform. Why is that important, Brian? Right, as I alluded to earlier on, it's no longer just about your employees, the identities your employees have. It is about the identities that your third parties, your contractors, your vendors have. It is not just about the humans, it's about the non-humans. Right? It's about the bots and the automation and the service accounts. So unifying the entire identity on a single data model, data warehouse, I think that is critical. I mean, let me just give you, maybe contextualize it with numbers, Brian, right? If you look at a typical large, complex organizations of say 100,000 employees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have probably upwards of 100 applications in there. And in each application, if you think about it, right, the entitlements, access entitlements, right, about 100. I don't even count the 100,000 data entitlements. The combination of identities to access to data and to applications is 20 billion. It's in the billions. And that makes it humanly impossible for any organizations to try to manage every one of those points of exposure. And therefore, having automation, having a data warehouse, a unified data warehouse powered by AI/ML to try to cut through all of that and make sense of that, identify where the threats are before they even occur. I think that would be key. Anybody who's looking at really modernizing their identity security platform needs to look at that unified platform from the data warehouse to the policies, right? I mean, in the traditional world of managing identities, people look at roles-based, right? Now people are talking about policy-based, right? People are talking about attributes-based. Organizations
so
are
this
now
is
talking.
where AI is going to really help large organizations, isn't it? Because on one hand, again, the bad actors are using AI, and it's an arms race. It's a continual back and forth. The good guys like you need to then use AI to help the clients basically fend off the bad guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll give you an example, right, where AI has actually produced measurable outcomes for organizations that we work with, right?
Okay, give us some specific examples then, particularly perhaps different industries? Because a lot of times people think of IT security or any sort of security in terms of, oh yeah, the banks invest in it, but then I don't need to do that.
Absolutely. Brian, look, I think, first of all, and enterprise security is important for everybody, right? But as you alluded to, I think banking, a lot of focus there, a lot of regulation there, but even outside of banking, outside of telcos, I'll give you an example, right? In the Philippines, for example, right? Globe, major telecommunication company in the Philippines, right? They came to work with us some time back, as they're rapidly digitalizing. How do they transform and transform at pace and securely, right? So they looked at their environment, they look at the digital assets they have, they look at the identities that they have. They work with us, right, to put all of those onto a unified SailPoint platform that helps them accelerate that business transformation, because that involves organization changes. And in organizations like Globe, right, we are seeing generally, right, some 30%, right, increase in the speed of organization changes, right? Just with the help of advanced tools like AI/ML, right? And also, I think with AI/ML, while taking away some of the load, right, of manual work, customers are beginning to realize also that it also drives employee experience, right? That speed and that pace and that employee experience is critical. I mean, take Globe for example. I mean, we work with them, and they say, look, I'm onboarding people fast, right? People come in, it takes 19 days for me to get them productive, give them the access that they want. With the identity platform, right? That came down to one, right? On day one, every single employee has access to all the applications and data and they need to be productive immediately.
And speaking about onboarding and people, one of the critical challenges organizations globally, but particularly in ASEAN, are facing is really the lack of cybersecurity professionals. And obviously, via your AI tools, this is going to reduce the amount of people involved and required because things are automated. Tell us a little bit more of what sort of savings you've been able to show customers.
Yeah, no, I think productivity and efficiency gains have traditionally been a key driver, right, for identity security, and it continues to be so, even as the security focus, the compliance focus become more and more pronounced. We are seeing AI, ML, and automation, right, take a huge load off of organizations' operational workloads. But that's not to say that the reduce in the headcounts translating directly into cost savings. That may be the case, but the real value is uplifting, right, upskilling those resources into a lot more higher value add, policy, a lot more strategy. They are thinking, they're no longer operational folks, right? Giving provisioning access, deprovisioning access, closing tickets and all that. Those guys, I mean, in some of the most advanced organizations and the most forward-looking organizations that I've worked with, those people are now thinking about, policies, thinking about strategies, right, to enable security today and well into the future. And I'll give you an example, right? I mean, recent times, identity threat detection and response is becoming, ITDR is becoming a prominent topic, as people think about, hey, look, the entire security and identity security fabric is so diverse, right? How does the different parts of the ecosystem work together, right? From the identity perspective, we provide identity context to some of the alerts and to some of the findings from the rest of the ecosystems, and vice versa, right? So we become a lot smarter, a lot quicker, and a lot more efficient. And that's what's driving a lot of the investments we see, particularly in ASEAN.
Now, you have a regional security lens because of your job. How are jurisdictions coping with all the changes? Because we've had changes in cybersecurity regulations and Asia, particularly in Singapore, which is a leader, but then countries like Malaysia as well, not far behind. Walk us through how the regulations are sort of evolving in order to counter the changing landscape of cybersecurity.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for the question. Right. I mean, first of all, I believe that the regulatory changes and the evolution of regulation is really good for the industry, right? I think it helps to shape a more secure digital environment, right? It helps to up level and increase the standards of cybersecurity practices and measures, and that drives the fostering of trust, right, in businesses as well as in the public, right, which then drives confidence and overall good for the economy. So I think regulation, I think is important. We're seeing a lot of updates in terms of data privacy. So in Malaysia, you have the PDPA. Singapore, similar, I think a little bit earlier on, right? The importance of protecting personal information, CII infrastructures. That's key, that's going to be they'll continue to be prominent, right? We're also seeing cybersecurity acts frameworks being built out in consultation with businesses, with enterprise, and with the public. So it is a team sport. I mean, we like to say in security, it is a team sport, right? That you require. I mean, there's a few steps to it, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen, right? And we're seeing governments and regulators, right, pay a lot of attention to that, right? That there's education, there is awareness that needs to be driven. There's also collaboration, right? I mean, as you alluded, I like to think Singapore is a little bit more advanced than other regions, right? But I think it is important that everybody uplifts cybersecurity standards, right? Because it's a team sport, and you are only as strong as your weakest link, right? So we're seeing a lot more collaboration across cybersecurity agencies. We're seeing a lot more collaboration across enterprises, user groups coming together, sharing best practices, and all of that. So that collaboration is important, and we're seeing the regulators really consulting, right, the industry, right, really working across borders, sharing information and uplifting the entire region and globally as well.
Now, Eric, what are some key trends that we should be watching out for in cybersecurity in 2024, 2025?
I mean, we touched on a couple of those already. I think AI ML will continue to be a focus, right, and something that we will watch very closely. That space is still evolving, and I alluded to the explosion of digital identities, right? That is a key part of I think the exposure that will continue to expand. Research shows that even if I were to take a step back, right, I mean, providing some context in terms of where we are in terms of identity security maturity, right? We published the Horizons of Identity Security report in partnership with Accenture, right? And in that survey, we kind of categorize the maturity model into 5 phases, right? The first phase being literally you don't have any strategy, you don't have any operating model, no technology, no people, right? And then to the most advanced, where you're using advanced analytic tools. Globally, 44% of enterprises that we surveyed are still in the first phase, right? So nearly half of
That's a
organizations.
huge number.
That is a huge number,
And I
right?
would suspect then if in an ASEAN context, that number could be a much bigger number.
You're exactly right, Brian. I was just coming to that, right? When I slice that information into the Asia Pacific view, that number goes up to 60%. And this is Asia Pacific, right? 60% of organizations are still in Horizon 1, right? Where they may be talking about it, they may be doing research about it, but there's nothing in place. So the opportunity for us to really uplift our cybersecurity posture is huge in that space. So for organizations, coming back to my point, for organizations that have already adopted identity security, right, the coverage is not complete, right? We have found that organizations that have identity security practices in place, more than 30%, right, of their identities are still uncovered, ungoverned, and unsecure. So the learning curve and the maturation curve, right, is steep. But the signs are positive. We're seeing uplift. We're seeing a lot of work being done by the regulators, or like I said, on the education, on the collaboration. But organizations are also starting to realize they need to invest in a future-proof platform, right? That is unified, that cuts across the entire universe of identities, that supports multiple use cases, powered by AML, that can drive autonomous, real-time, right, and dynamic control of their access. And this is an area we are investing. We at SailPoint, we're investing tremendously in how do you ensure, right, that even your controls are not static, right? It is dynamic. It is based on your situations, based on attributes. It is based on risk, and you are able to autonomously, again, coming back to, it's just humanly impossible to manage this. How does your platform, how does the system, right, when it detects risk, automatically triggers off workflows, right? Automatically identifies outliers, take away access, right? Force a recertification, right? Have a double, bring in the humans and the experts to have a double take on what's going on in there to keep the organization safe. So the unified platform powered by AML, managing across all identities, right, is something of a mission for SailPoint, and we are at the forefront of that platform development.
Eric, it's been a fascinating conversation. I've actually learned a lot of new stuff from you, which I'm going to do more research on. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, no, I think three thoughts, right? I mean, I said that security is a team sports, right? Work with the regulators, work with the industry, work with the industry platforms like SailPoint, right? We're always happy to share our knowledge, share the latest developments in there. So work, learn, and work, collaborate, and understand that cybersecurity and identity security is a journey. It is not a once and done, right? That's identity security, and security as a whole is not a destination. It is a continued journey and a program of work that takes time, and it stretches over a period. Work with the thought leaders like yourself, right, on this platform. Get educated, work with us. I think keep alert and keep really on top of the evolution that is happening out there.
Eric, thank you very much for coming on the show. I enjoyed this.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
We've been speaking to Eric Kong. He's the Managing Director of ASEAN at SailPoint. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.